Every spring, we turn our clocks an hour ahead, and in the fall, we turn them back. But why? Researchers and government officials are reevaluating the need for daylight saving time, and here's what you need to know. The practice of daylight saving actually originates at the beginning of civilization. People adjusted their daily schedules depending on the sun, which meant that the workday varied in length. Fast forward to 1784. Benjamin Franklin published an essay in France, suggesting that rising earlier could help people save money on candles. More than 100 years later, George Vernon Hudson, a New Zealand astronomer, suggested a 2-hour daylight saving shift. Then again, in 1907, British builder William Willett proposed advancing clocks by 80 minutes in 4 incremental steps. A daylight saving time wasn't formally implemented until World War I, when Germany attempted to drive down the demand for electrical lighting to divert more coal to the war. 31 other countries quickly followed with similar policies, seizing any opportunity to save money during the war. Daylight saving was repealed during peacetime, but was brought back during World War II and the 1973 oil embargo. Since then, various laws have made daylight saving time a standard practice across America. But states can opt out, as Arizona, Hawaii, and other American territories have. Yet despite all of daylight saving's promises to reduce energy consumption and save money, there's little proof that it works. In 2008, researchers released a study on statewide energy consumption before and after Indiana adopted daylight saving time. The data shows that daylight saving actually led to a 1% overall rise in residential electricity. And that's not even the worst of it. Another 2008 study shows that daylight saving affects sleeping patterns that may be linked to an increase in heart attacks. Currently, daylight saving is implemented worldwide in over 70 countries. But as the evidence starts to pile up against the practice, daylight saving may just become another footnote in history.
Every year, some countries move their clocks forward in the spring, only to move them back in the autumn. To the vast majority of the world who doesn't participate in this odd clock fiddling, it seems a baffling thing to do. So what's the reason behind it? The original idea, proposed by George Hudson, was to give people more sunlight in the summer. Of course, it's important to note that changing a clock doesn't actually make more sunlight. That's not how physics works. But by moving the clocks forward an hour, compared to all other human activity, the sun will seem to both rise and set later. The time when the clocks are moved forward is called daylight saving time, and the rest of the year is called standard time. This switch effectively gives people more time to enjoy the sunshine and nice summer weather after work. Hudson, in particular, wanted more sunlight so he could spend more time adding to his insect collection. When winter is coming, the clocks move back, presumably because people don't want to go outside anymore. But winter doesn't have this effect on everyone. If you live in a tropical place like Hawaii, you really don't have to worry about seasons because they pretty much don't happen. Every day, all year, is sunny and beautiful, so Christmas is just as good of a day to hit the beach as any other. And so, Hawaii is one of 2 states in the Union that ignore daylight saving time. But the further you travel from the equator in either direction, the more the seasons assert themselves and you get colder and darker winters, making summertime much more valuable to the locals. So it's no surprise that the further a country is from the equator, the more likely it uses daylight saving time. Hudson proposed his idea in Wellington in 1895, but it wasn't well received, and it took until 1916 for Germany to be the first country to put it into practice. Though the uber-industrious Germans were less concerned with catching butterflies on a fine summer evening than they were with saving coal to feed the war machine. The Germans thought daylight saving time would conserve energy. The reasoning goes that it encourages people to stay out later in the summer and thus use less artificial lighting. This sounds logical, and it may have worked in the more regimented society of 100 years ago, but does it still work in the modern world? That turns out to be a surprisingly difficult question to answer. For example, take mankind's greatest invention, air conditioning, the magic box of cool that makes otherwise uninhabitable sections of the world quite tolerable places to live. But pumping heat out of your house isn't cheap, and turning on one air conditioner is the same as running dozens of tungsten light bulbs. If people get more sunshine, but they don't use it to go outside, then daylight saving time might actually cost electricity, not save it. This is particularly true in a place like Phoenix, where the average summer high is 107 degrees and the record is 122. If you suggest to an Arizonan to change their clocks in the summer to get more sunshine, they laugh in your face. Sun and higher electricity bills are not what they want, which is why Arizona is the second state that never changes their clocks. Another problem with trying to study daylight saving time is rapid changes in technology and electrical use. As technology gets better and better and better, more electricity is dedicated to things that aren't light bulbs, and the lure of a hot, sweaty, mosquito-filled day outside is less appealing than technological entertainment and climate-controlled comfort inside. Also, the horrifically energy-inefficient tungsten light bulbs that have remained unchanged for a century are giving way to CFLs and LEDs, greatly reducing the amount of energy required to light a room. So, even assuming that daylight saving time is effective, it's probably less effective with every passing year. The bottom line is, while some studies say daylight saving time costs more electricity and others say it saves electricity, the one thing they agree on is the effect size. Not 20% or 10%, but 1% or less, which, in the United States, works out to be about $4 per household. $4 saved or spent on electricity over an entire year is not really a huge deal either way. So the question now becomes, is the hassle of switching clocks twice a year worth it? The most obvious trouble comes from sleep deprivation, an already too common affliction in the Western world that daylight saving time makes measurably worse. With time tracking software, we can actually see that people are less productive the week after the clock changes. This comes with huge associated costs. To make things worse, most countries take away that hour of sleep on a Monday morning. Sleep deprivation can lead to heart attacks and suicides, and the daylight saving time Monday has a higher than normal spike in both.
Wow, well, it is a crazy time. If you've been watching the election coverage, then you know it's America's farewell season, right? There are a lot of issues I care about, but if the next president wants my vote, here's what they can do. Stop daylight saving time. That's what I want. I'm glad you agree with me. It's been a week since daylight saving. I still can't get back to my routine. This morning I slept through my alarm. I could barely get myself dressed. I was putting on my pants like OJ trying gloves on. It's exhausting. First you lose an hour of sleep, and then the next morning you have to climb up the ladder to the bell tower and change the clock. Just me? Okay. Then at night I can't fall asleep, and sometimes when I can't sleep I just like to redecorate. I don't know if anybody else does that. Last night I decided that the sofa would look better where the chairs were, so I exchanged the chairs where the sofa were, and then I thought it would be nice to divide the room with a long table in the middle. So I was dragging that across the room, and that's when the manager at the Starbucks said, "Get out." The one thing that is keeping me awake today and keeping me happy and coming out here is seeing your smiling faces. That's what's... Yep, and hoping one of you has some cocaine. Those are the two... Turns out a lot of places don't have daylight saving, and they're doing just fine. Hawaii doesn't have it. In Hawaii, it is always the same time, rum 30. That's what time it is. China doesn't change the clocks. They make their people lose an hour the old-fashioned way by taking away their lunch breaks. That's how they lose their... All I know is I want my hour back, and I'm not sure who to ask. Maybe who's in charge? Father Time, I assume. And like most fathers, if he's in charge, something gets lost. So I'm not counting on that. Plus, it's been proven that we don't change the clocks. It makes us healthier, it's safer, and if we don't lose an hour, we have one more hour to dance.